How to stop victim shaming in domestic violence. Hi there, I'm Dr. Nachi Sinha, and today's video is another in the series on domestic violence. In my previous videos, I have discussed the common signs of domestic violence, how to end domestic violence, and how to offer your help and support to domestic violence victims. I've also talked about the harmful effects of domestic violence on victims' physical and mental health. In today's video, I will discuss a very lethal problem in society. This problem prevents victims from coming out and speaking against violence. The problem that I am going to address is victim shaming. So let's start today's video. Our minds have been conditioned to question the victim or party who suffered damages. We do that to delude ourselves that the world is a safe place, people are good. And whatever bad happens to people is because of their recklessness or them not being extra careful. And to make ourselves relaxed, we question the victim to find out what they did wrong, or to become the victim of abuse, violence, or assault. Now, for people in general, these are just questions. But for the victim, it's like re-experiencing the whole trauma, or even worse. Now, because they have to justify why they were victims, while nobody takes it up with the abuser or holds them accountable for their doings, victim shaming in any form, either by asking questions, defending the abuser, or implying that the victim was somehow at fault, can have damaging effect on the victim. Let's talk a bit about this now. As I've talked about in the few, due to severe fear of the abuser, many victims don't come forward to speak up or seek help. When somebody supports them, they just about get some courage to end the relationship and violence. But when they see the domestic violence victim is being blamed or not believed, they step back and give up the idea of coming forward and exposing the abuser. So when you blame one victim, the rest of the victims lose the hope of walking out of the relationship and ending the violence. Another damaging effect of victim shaming is that it gives more power to the abuser. When the abuser sees that the victim is questioned first and asked to justify themselves, they get more confident, because they know that nobody will hold them accountable unless the victim provides them with proper proof. So just as blaming one victim stops the other victims from coming out, likewise, not holding one abuser accountable aids in making other abusers. Now, to discuss some simple ways through which one can stop victim shaming and encourage others to empathize with the victim. 5 ways to stop victim shaming. The first and the most important step to stopping victim shaming is to listen to the victim. If the victim comes out and shares their problem about abuse, violence, or sexual assault, always listen to them. Do not ask them hurtful questions or pass judgmental remarks, or in any way imply that you do not trust them. When a victim confides in you and shares that they are being abused by their partner, spouse, or parents, pay attention. If you listen to the victim patiently and show them that you trust them, they will be motivated to set themselves free from the clutches of their abuser. But if you or any other person choose not to take the victim seriously or start asking them pointed questions, Remember that you are limiting the chances of other domestic abuse victims to accuse the abuser. Moving on to the next step for stopping victim shaming. Imagine yourself in the victim's position. When a person shares that their life is miserable because of domestic violence, it is natural to have a few questions pop up in one's mind. But before you blurt out those questions, imagine yourself in the victim's shoes. Think about how you would have felt if someone asked you those questions. Similarly, do not make the victim feel guilty for not seeing the red flags and signs of the abusive relationship. Domestic violence victims are blamed by their abusers for the abuse. And constant belittling, mocking, and blaming make the victim feel guilty for not making the right decisions. Asking them why they didn't leave early or didn't expose the abuser before further adds to their guilt. Well, there can be numerous reasons why the victims didn't share their violence story. For example, the victim might have thought that the abuser would change. The victim maybe was financially dependent upon the abuser. Societal and family pressure was maybe stopping the victim from ending their relationship or marriage. The victim maybe had kids who were dependent on the abuser. So, never blame the victim for not taking the decision earlier or staying in an abusive relationship. Instead, appreciate them for standing against the violence now. The third tip to stop victim shaming is hold the abuser accountable. Change the trend of asking questions from the victim, and instead confront the abuser. Whenever a victim shares that their partner is abusive and needs help, do whatever you can. Provide them with the help that they need. Do not think you cannot do much for the victim or help them to end their abusive relationship. Do whatever you can. Also, when the victim parts ways with the abuser, or even before that, if they're at risk, encourage them to contact the police. If the abusers are punished by law, it will set an example for other abusers. They will think quite a while before threatening or hurting anybody else. Another important thing to add is that one should not hesitate to contact the police when you suspect or witness that a victim's life is at risk. If the abusers are reported to local authorities, we can see a significant drop in the domestic violence rate. The next tip worth looking at: appreciate the victim. Many victims choose to stay quiet and continue to suffer in agony because they fear the questions and judgments of society. But if we start appreciating the victims for standing up for themselves and exposing the abuser, many of the victims will also come forward. And this will bring a positive change in society. Moreover, it will also help the victim get past the self-blaming, guilt, and the doubt phase of their lives. When the victim finds support and appreciation, it becomes easier for them to move past the painful phase of their life. They develop a positive and hopeful mindset, which was shadowed by pessimism and despair because of the violence. The fifth way to stop victim shaming is by helping the victim move on with their life. And the best way to start this is by encouraging them to seek professional help to process their trauma. Encourage them to seek therapy. Being a victim of domestic violence means living on the edge and walking on eggshells every day. The victim is always stressed about how their abuser will hurt them if they do anything wrong. This constant state of stress and worrying makes the victim anxious and also affects their physical health. All this stress, anxiety, worrying can lead to PTSD and other mental illnesses. They might even get suicidal thoughts. This domestic violence victim must be encouraged to seek professional help, either seeing a therapist, psychologist, their own doctor, psychiatrist. These are important sources of help and will help the victim to move on with their life with new hopes and leave the tormenting and ugly phase of domestic violence behind them. So instead of finding out what the victim did wrong to anger the abuser, try to help them overcome and soothe their trauma. Encouraging them to seek therapy and professional help is one of the best ways of doing it. Domestic violence is traumatizing and scars a person's mind, confidence, and self-esteem. It can make the person emotionally numb and depressed. So instead of contributing to the victim's pain, empathize with them and extend your unreserved support. If we in a society support victims and expose the abuser, we can definitely see a significant change. I will see you next time with another video of the domestic violence series. Please make sure that you're subscribed. And please don't forget to reach out. There is help and it works. Thank you.